So, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our Grand Round speaker, David Kushner. And let me start by saying, you're never a hero in your own home. Rarely do we get to take a second and appreciate each and every individual in this department. This department's populated by amazing people. And I've said this a million times, I feel so lucky to work here. So I could take about 20 minutes to introduce David, but that's probably not going to work here. His background, he went to the University of Michigan for college. We're not going to hold that against him. Wayne State for med school, Northwestern for residency, in the Cleveland Clinic for fellowship. He took over the division when Ellen stepped down and did a magnificent job, recruited some superstars, started a fellowship. I remember before I got here hearing about this fellowship. It continues to be one of the very best programs in the United States, highly competitive. Now, in terms of, I'm just going to give you a little taste of what he's got going on. He took over as vice chair of clinical research about a year ago and has totally transformed the department, not from only just a research perspective, but financially and how we support research. And that work is continuing, and I'm just remarkably grateful. He's well-funded. He's the co-PI in the GOG, national trial group. It's fantastic. Now, he's also part of the American Board of Ob-Gyn, has given board exams, helps write questions. His star on that front is certainly rising. He has focused on quality of life for a long time and is recognized as a national and international expert. Sexual health in cancer patients is his forte. He served as president of the national organization, has published extensively, and really is contributing to the literature in so many areas related to quality of health. Now, the thing that David has done selfishly for me that's most important, and there is a long list of things he's done for me, is that he has made me aware of the fact that wellness as a concept is not stupid. I am not the paradigm of wellness. Does everybody in this room know that? I think so. Yeah, there's a little snickering going on. I understand that. But a few years ago, David started talking to me about this and talking to me about some courses he had taken. And then, of course, now he's just published extensively in the field. He is chair of the SGO task force on wellness, runs huge seminars every year, publications, etc. So I personally have benefited by his interest in wellness. And, I realize that, I want wellness. You can work really hard and still be well. And also, we talked about this in M&M. We just have really hard jobs. There's no getting around it. And balancing work with time, with income, there's a lot of variables in there that shouldn't be Brownian motion. It should not be Brownian motion for anybody in this room. People, including myself, should not be buffeted around and feel out of control. We can all make decisions around this, how much we work, how big our groups are, how much money we want to make, how much time out of work we want to focus on wellness. It is not a Brownian motion concept. So I'm turning it over to David. Come on up here, Dave. Give us a word. Give him a hand.
Wow, that was really nice. Thank you. Jeez, I'm like, who is she introducing? Can you guys hear me okay? I've not worn this kind of microphone before. It's kind of, Steve's job. Let's see. First of all, what kind of M&M did you guys plan before wellness? That was something. So I think that it couldn't have been planned better in terms of highlighting our need to make sure that we take care of ourselves, because we have some really complicated people to take care of. In terms of what I'm going to talk about today, it's, many of you have been in wellness sessions before. We've done them in this department before. And so I was thinking about what would be the best thing to bring to the department. And I wanted to bring it to the next level, because there's been a lot of discussion about the problem. Does the problem exist? And I'll go over that, but I'm going to go over that a little more briefly. Same thing with sort of how it's affecting us, and is it really a problem, and some of the basic solutions for helping make yourself well. That stuff we've discussed a little bit as a department, but not everybody was there, so I thought I'd go back over that to some degree. and then try to bring it to the level beyond that. How are we really going to fix this problem? Is there a way we can actually fix this problem? So that's a bit of an outline of what we're going to talk about today. So I have, we're not going to be talking about drugs today, although, that's one way to solve the problem, but not a good one. And we're not going to be talking about off-label use of drugs either. I'm working with two different remotes here, so if I'm a little confused at the beginning, we'll see how that goes. I am the Wellness Task Force Chair for the SGO. A lot of what I've learned is through that role, and it's been very helpful. This may or may not have anything to do with me. We all have our struggles, and so if some of myself comes out in this talk, sorry about that. I think that is inevitable when you talk about a topic like this. Okay, anybody recognize this church? Anyone? Someone in the room has got to. Now, I was just I'll give you a hint, it just was in Israel. So this is in Jerusalem. This is the church, now I might not say it right, of the Holy Sepulchre? Sepulchre? Thank you. So if you've been to Europe, you have seen churches. I love seeing churches in Europe. In fact, the Vatican, it's just incredible. And in Paris and Loire Valley, and these churches are just one beautiful church after another. This is the most holy church in Christianity. This is the church where it is believed that Jesus was crucified, and this is the church where his tomb is currently. So what do you guys notice about this church versus a church that you've seen, or if you have, in Europe? Somebody comment. What's that? It looks the same, although it looks
a little simpler.
A little simpler, right? A little simpler, a little not as clean, maybe not as taken care of, right? This is the holiest church in Christianity, and it is not taken care of. Why is that? So does anybody know this story? Because I was really surprised to hear this story. This has to do with what's called the status quo. So the status quo is something that was determined in the 18th century in Jerusalem, where there were 5 or 6 different Christian or Catholic sects, mostly Catholic sects, that had different portions of this church sort of staked out. And they had been warring, and it had been just a disaster, one war after another over this one church. And so there was a period of 5 years where everybody was getting along. And nobody could believe everybody was getting along. So they said, you know what? We are going to create what's called the status quo. Nothing can change. And if whoever owns anything that they have right now, you can keep it, and we just can't change anything. And everybody said fine, and they signed on the dotted line. And the person the sect that owned the keys at that time, which was the Armenians, they have the keys for all of time. And if you have this door, if you have that brick, that's the way it's going to be. Well, what does that mean? Well, everybody stopped warring. That was great. But no renovations could ever be made. Nothing could change. This has not been cleaned inside or out. There's no security. Anybody can walk right in, walk right up to Jesus' tomb at any time. Every other site you go to in Jerusalem is a somber place. There's kids running around screaming. It's crazy in there. There's, for example, if you look over there, you'll see, you may not be able to see it, but there's a blow up. There's a ladder. That little wood ladder has been there since 1850. Because when, at some point around where the status quo occurred, there was a broken window and that needed to be there, and nobody can move that. So that's a little bit about if you keep things the way they are. It sure seems like a good idea because there was warring and stuff, but now you have one of what I would say of all the churches I've seen, one of the ugliest churches, only because it hasn't been cleaned up in any way or taken care of. So why do I bring that up? The status quo, was it such a great idea? So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about history when we talk about wellness. So let's play a game, all right? First game. What are things that were said to you as a resident that did not contribute to your wellness? All right, I'll go first. And I get to yell at the residents because I'm giving the talk. So we'd be in the OR, and I would have an attending who would literally be about this far away from me. That is the worst 5 minutes of surgery I have ever seen. You will never be a surgeon. You should probably leave now. My 4-year-old could come in here and do that better. Or I'm practically 80 years old and I could see that blood vessel from the other side of the room. You didn't even see it. This patient's going to die and it's going to be your fault. So these are real things that were said to me a lot. Now, maybe they weren't said to everybody, but you know that they were. And I want to hear somebody else. Just give me anything. Raise your hand. Dobie.
In fellowship, I stated my opinion, and the quote was, "Quit complaining, you're a temporary worker."
Perfect. Great.
During residency, I was told, "Bills, do that again, and I'll effing kill you."
Yeah.
So a surgical oncologist was frustrated with my camera skills, and he said, you got to stop. It's me and the patient against you and the tumor.
Right. So we could go on. I mean, this could be the whole grand rounds. You know, I will say that I have had people tell me that there should be no other pregnant women in the program because if they have time to have sex, they should be having time to read. I remember trying to comfort my junior resident by knocking on the door of the bathroom as they're crying and trying to get them out of the bathroom between surgeries as they're in there crying and not able to leave the bathroom. So this is stuff that all of us have seen and experienced. We've been in denial, right? I mean, in the past anyways, we're in denial. Do we remember this? This is like one of the greatest scenes like of all time, right? It's only a flesh wound. All right, so when I thought about giving this talk, how to do it, I was thinking, how do I put this in a way so that people understand? And we're talking to physicians, so you guys know about the stages of grief, right? Well, I think there's been stages that we've gone through for dealing with this as a group of physicians. There was a lot of denial. There was a lot of anger when people started bringing up wellness or taking care of yourself. And there was a lot of pushback and anger, right? We'll all just be fine, we would hear. The next stage, bargaining. So did bargaining really happen? I would argue that bargaining has happened. One of the good examples of this is the whole ACGME issue with resident work hours, right? So it was 1988, which is a long time ago, that the ACGME first started recommending work hour restrictions, and I listed them here, 1 in 7 days away from the hospital, that sort of thing. The internal medicine RRC started putting into place in 1989, the 80-hour limit. And then 6 years go by, and again, a lot of discussion and bargaining and arguing, and a couple other residencies put it in place. It wasn't until 2003 that the common duty hours, the first ones, the 80-hour work week was first put into place. And, you know, again, I was one of the people like feeling like, does this even make any sense? You know, 80 hours. 80 hours is a long work week, folks. That's a long, not a lot of people do 80-hour work weeks. And so this continued, and then of course basically the current guidelines were put in place in 2011. So there was a long period of bargaining that occurred. Another thing that occurred was when people wanted to study this topic, the issue was, you know, well, you can't define it. There's no way we're going to be able to figure it out. What is burnout? And, well, that went on for years and years and years as well, for about 20 years, until we came around some definitions. Some of them I'm mentioning here. So emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, low personal accomplishment. ICD-10 came out with something, and ultimately the definitions kind of solidified around this, what you see here, which is the MBI. And I'll just, this has become standard. Now there are other definitions, but this has become a pretty standard index. This is used in most of the literature, the things that I'm gonna cite. So I wanted to just review it. So you have emotional exhaustion. So there are 3 different areas: emotional, depersonalization, and personal accomplishment. And you can see here different questions. I'm sure it's hard to read, but like for emotional exhaustion, there's things like emotionally drained, used up, fatigued, personal accomplishment, I deal with problems effectively, I feel exhilarated, I accomplish goals. So you do this, you fill out this form, you get a number, and you compare it, and there's definitions for burnout. So we figured that out, so that's good. And so then ultimately, this is what happened. As soon as you get a good definition, then you can really study it. This is the number of articles. So take a look at, when that definition started to really get into, it was really defined somewhere here around 2000, and then look what's happened after that time. So it's really been important. All right, so the last two phases, right? You got depression and then acceptance in the Kubler-Ross stages. I would argue that these two things, when it comes to this topic, are tied together. You accept it, and then you're depressed about it, and that you go back and forth depending on the day and how you're feeling about it. So I'm going to kind of lump them together, but really focus on acceptance. Because did we get to acceptance? Are we there? Are we past that? I would say that we are past that, and if we were giving this talk 2 or 3 years ago, we might still be struggling with acceptance. I think we are past that now, and I'm going to just make that argument. So it is a problem. Just a couple pieces of this problem that I'm going to mention. Every study has shown somewhere between 30 and 65% rate of burnout. I'm mentioning some specific numbers here. Pediatric residents, 74% in one study in 2008. So it is, there's no question it's a problem. I want to focus on this slide. So this is fresh. You're going to see that there's been a lot of serendipity when it came to this talk. I didn't know I was going to talk about this. I decided a month ago, maybe I'll talk about this topic since it's something I've been doing on a national level. And as I started to put it together, a lot of stuff kind of came around. A lot of stuff was published or came out just in the last month since deciding to do this kind of hot off the presses. This is one of those. So this is specialties and burnout. And let me sort of show you this. It's really amazing. This came from the AMA. And you have all the specialties ranked. And then it just says how it changed from 2013 to 17. So the dark blue is 2013 and the light blue is 2017. You will notice that nobody went backwards. Everybody's a little worse, at least. And you can see, did you go up or down? So pediatrics went up by 10 points. Pathology went down by up by 2, and you see some that went down, some that are equal. So emergency medicine is still the king at number 1, has not changed. OB-GYN was 4 in 2013 and is now number 2. So that's important for us to understand as baseline. And you'll see that the numbers of burnout, based on what I just talked about, went from somewhere in the 30 to 40 range now to we're all somewhere closer to the 50 or higher range. This is available. Everything that I'm showing is available, easily found and Googled on, and it's available on the web, so not hard to find. What does this mean? Well, what we know is that there's people who are burnt out have a higher risk of all the things that I'm mentioning here: alcohol, substance abuse, anxiety, panic, relationship issues at home, physical, emotional, quality of life issues. I mean, everything here, suicide. And those rates for suicide are 2 to 3 times at least higher than the general population. So that's an important piece of this as well. Let's see. There we go. So some specific data, as we're still making sure that we're all in that acceptance phase. In case some people are not quite there yet, which is very possible in the audience, I want to spend a couple more minutes on this. What got me interested in this? Well, Jeff Fowler, who's from Ohio State, presented at the SGO meeting in 2015, and he presented G1 oncology data. And I have to say that even though this was circling out there, until you see it in your own group, in your own, like something that really touches you, it may not be as interesting to you. So when he presented this, all of us were really kind of shocked. The numbers that I just showed you weren't available. So none of us knew that they were, maybe 30, 40% in all the physicians. And when we saw these numbers of 32% in G1 oncologists, we were all quite concerned, and that's how I got involved with the task force. He also showed in G1 oncologists what you see here, which are that these what you see on the left, so low quality of life, higher depression screens, these things were all associated with burnout. Now that makes sense, but just to point them out, this was pointed out for one of the first times, that if you were had a higher risk of depression, you were burnt out. So which one came first, right? We don't know. But there were many positive things that were seen that would protect you. So if you had a child and you encouraged your child to become a doctor, that meant that you were less burned out, or vice versa. So that's an interesting sort of correlation that was seen. One of the more concerning things that was seen in that study and in many studies since then is that almost half of GYN oncologists were reluctant to seek medical care for depression, substance abuse, or any other mental health disorders because they were worried about what it would mean to their medical licensure. We'll come back around to this. This is a really critical point because if you need help, you need to be able to get help. So we'll talk about this a little bit more. Also, doctors that were burnt out, if they were reluctant to seek care, they had a higher chance of being burnt out. And if they were reluctant to seek care, they had a higher risk of already having alcohol problems. So it's sort of a vicious cycle. So you may remember this talk. I wanted to try to bring in stuff that the department has already done. This was not that long ago. This was a year ago. And I went through her slides, and I was actually, at this point in the talk, ready to talk about, just give that data as we're talking about making sure everybody is at acceptance. And I was like, I had those all loaded up in this talk until Sunday, when the talk was ready, and I thought I was set, until our fearless leader emailed me with a few X's and O's and said, hey Dave, some data just came out, hot off the presses. Take a look at this. I'm very concerned. Can you incorporate this into your talk? And I took a look and am happy to incorporate it into the talk. So this came out January 27th. So again, like I said, there's been a lot of stuff that have come together in this talk that I think are important. And this is so UW Health did got an outside consultant, used the Stanford, which is sort of a survey and a way of looking at this problem, which is pretty well accepted over the last year or so, kind of a short period of time. And then the data came in, and I want to share that with you. This is all going to be, it will be available. You'll be able to look at this. So I'm going to go over it briefly. One of the reasons why we wanted to start a little early today is so that if we want to talk about this more at the end of the talk, we can. But I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overview. So it is broken down into 4 groups. And the first one, the physician group, and physicians mean attending physicians. I'm going to just walk you through the full thing a little bit so you understand how it's laid out, and then in the other ones I'll go a little quicker. So it's not that long. It's like an 8-page report. It's actually quite easy to read, and let's just start. If you just focus over here, there wasn't enough time to turn this on the slides, by the way. I actually think it's better to look at the full report anyway. Here's the overall burnout rate, 38% for UW Health physicians, and 39%, conversely, in a different type of survey, have professional fulfillment in their job. All right? So there's that. They break it down into male and female, and you'll see a higher rate in female versus male, and a higher rate of professional fulfillment in men versus women. So this is very typical. Around the country, you'll see numbers that are similar to this. They then break it down. They use this here. Now, I had not seen this when I created my talk, and you'll see that I use kind of a similar thing later on. So it's nice to see that I came up with something similar to like the experts in the field. But they break it down, wellness, into culture of wellness, efficiency of practice, and personal resilience. And then they ask some questions that are specifically geared towards these topics. And one thing about this, I'll tell you in advance, is that you're going to be like, well, what does this all mean? A lot of it is getting your baseline now and then seeing what happens as we make changes. Can we make these things better? So we don't really know if where we are is good or bad. There's a little bit of that, but for the most part, it's like, let's just find out where we are. So where are we? So the first area they talk about is the culture of wellness. And without going through everything, I want to focus on what they have here, which is these are the UW Health mean for these. Now, these are out of 100, 0 to 100. It's not a percentage, it's just kind of a number. And then this is their benchmark around the country. So if you go to whether there's an alignment between personal and organizational values, we come up with a 49 out of 100. Doesn't sound all that great, but it's 47 as a benchmark around the country right now, okay? Do we perceive that we're appreciated? About 58% versus 54% around the country. And control over our schedule, 37 versus 39. Okay, so that's just to give you a feel. That's that. I'll go through a couple other numbers here just so that you've seen them. When we talk about efficiency, the first thing you have to talk about is the electronic health record and some of the issues there. Everybody's wellness dropped just from me saying that out loud. Perceived electronic record helpfulness. We thought it was 53 out of 100, and the benchmark was 52. So we're pretty much where everybody else is in the country, whether that's good or bad. And we perceived it to be a negative experience, 62 and 60. And the last topic was personal resilience. This is a little trickier to understand. And I think the best thing here is, let's see, this part here talks about, they talk about if you're burnt out, what are your issues, or what are the chances that you will have a medical error, okay? And what they showed, I'm sorry about popping through this way, is that people who were burnt out had a higher risk of medical error in our system, 24 versus 20. Those numbers are not percentages. It's basically self-perceived numbers of whether you did a medical error or not. And then they did some nice fancy statistics here, and this number, 1.75, again, shows that we definitely have a correlation between burnout and medical error. So that's the summary of this document. And take it for what it is. I do want to take a second on the other ones, since we have them, to show you just a couple interesting differences. So this is residence. Everybody's like thinking in their mind, what's it going to show? All right, so what you have is a similar, slightly higher burnout rate, but this is a very serious problem, right? So a much lower rate of professional fulfillment among residents. And you see it also worse among women, but less of a dramatic difference there. And let's, the next one is APPs. APPs, you see a big difference. Much lower burnout rate, much higher professional fulfillment rate among APPs. And interestingly, the first group that we're seeing an opposite effect, where there are worse numbers among men than women, is in APPs. All right, the last piece. What do they know about us in OBGYN? What did they get back in terms of OBGYN? And this is, I think, a key piece to this. I know it'd be great to blow this up. I actually am not on purpose, because I want you to take a second to just look. They have all the departments listed here. So those are here. I'm going to, first of all, ignore the right side of this. So what they do is they do the professional fulfillment. Those are the numbers that we saw on those graphs. The next one is that a 10-item professional burnout scale. And then these are two other scales. So this and this are just redundant. So all you really care about is the first, professional fulfillment, and the second one is burnout present. And I know this is hard to read. I will summarize it for you. So what you have in OBGYN in terms of overall professional fulfillment is about 55%, which is actually pretty good. We're one of the top groups, and certainly top third in terms of fulfillment. Our overall burnout rate, however, is 50%, which is, if not the worst, close to the worst. There's a couple that are worse than us, but not by much. And you will also see dramatic difference between us and almost any other group in terms of the fact that our men have a 64% burnout rate versus women at 43%. That's not seen elsewhere, and this really wasn't known until this came out. Here. And then if we keep going, here is our house staff. Our house staff, again, just look at the first two for a minute. Take a look at this, professional fulfillment. I want to be in department 1. 71% professional fulfillment, and then as you look down, one of the lowest numbers, OBGYN at 29% for house staff. Again, 14% burnout rate in Department 1, and we are at 65%, which I think is the highest on the board. Let that sink in. And with our APPs, we see 38% fulfillment rate, which is actually one of the lowers also. And our burnout rate, 42%, is also near the very top. So nobody seems to be protected in this room. All right, everybody feeling well at the moment? Let me see if I can get out of here. All right, so let's move on, because are we all at acceptance?
Yeah.
Good. Because that's a piece that took so long to get to, but I think we're there. And I know everything, like I said, if it was a few years ago, we would stop there and be like, okay, do something about this, have a nice day. The attack then really began a few years ago. Lots of efforts to try to make a difference here. And the first set of attempts really were related to personal wellness. What can we do personally to improve on this? So you do need a plan. So this is something also I would love to spend the whole rest of the time just talking about things on this slide. And I've done that, I've given some talks on this, and we spent some time on this as a department because it's fun and it's interesting, and I think it can be very, very helpful. We're gonna spend a little time on this, but then we're gonna move on beyond this. And I would love if people are interested in one of the topics here and wanna talk to me about it later, I'd be happy to, because there are incredible resources on each of these. In fact, every one of those points could be a 1-hour lecture. And there are great resources on each one of these things. So, mindfulness, resiliency, for example, energy management. I had never heard about energy management. It's fascinating. If you haven't read anything about the Energy Project, they came to the SGO meeting last year, and Jeff Fowler became the president of the SGO, and then brought them in and did an incredible management of energy. So not to manage your time, but to manage your energy, and to be able to allow the energy to come back during the day, and make sure that you're not just getting rid of all of your energy because you just can't function when your energy is gone. It was a really interesting way of looking at life. So each of these has interesting data behind it, and they're fun to talk about. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on it. I do want to remind you that we did this. This was an amazing faculty development seminar that was done. Can't believe it was 2014. It seems like it was only like a year ago, but that's when it happened. And those slides are all available on the faculty development part of the intranet, and they're really good to look at if you're interested in this topic. So I'm just going to cover just a couple of them. So what is resilience? Because that's something that's a critical piece of this. There is a book that the AMA put out that I have here called The Resilient Physician. My understanding is, I'm looking at Dave, I think we bought a bunch of these books and have them. Is that right? Great. So if you want to... Excellent. So talk to Leslie if you want to. So we have this. Let's talk about some definitions. So it is, by one definition, the long-term ability to survive and thrive on adversity. The capacity to be resourceful and creative, to make choices and to take effective action no matter what's going on around us. That's interesting based on stuff that we talked about already this morning. It can be complicated. I put this up as something, again, that I'm happy to talk about after. I'm not going to get into details, but this is, if many of you know Sarah Halley, she introduced me to this concept of multiple ways of looking at resilience. This is from the presence-based coaching approach, and there's books written on this, and about multiple different aspects of resilience and ways to get resilience going into your life, and it's a really interesting way to look at it. So, one piece of resilience for many people is mindfulness. And so there's a lot written and a lot of studies done on this. Paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the moment, and non-judgmentally. John Kabat-Zinn said this. He was here maybe about a year ago, and many people went to that talk that he had here because he developed the mindfulness-based stress reduction program. So let's take a second on mindfulness. Again, we're going to move past some of these solutions, but I do want to spend a second on this. So let's have a little bit of fun. I think it's fun. Let's everybody stand up. By the way, it's always good in the middle of a speech to have everybody stand up. Okay. So, centering practice. This is something that you can do for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, or 10 seconds, actually. And you can fit it into your day in multiple different ways. I actually have these pictures that I'm going to show you on a little card that I can carry in my, my coat pocket, and so I can look at it every now and then. All right, let's start with this. So here's what we're going to do. Some people like to close their eyes when they do mindful activities. Other people, especially when they stand, don't want to. Don't worry about it. You can close your eyes or not close your eyes. You can just, if you're going to keep your eyes open, instead of looking up at me, you can take one good look at that length picture for a second, but then basically you're just going to look down a bit, okay? And we're going to talk about your length for a minute, all right? So what does that mean? Well, first of all, just start by taking a deep breath. Just in and out. So feel your length, feel your height. Feel the ground. And just breathe slowly. Be aware that you're breathing. Stand tall. Your spine long. Head lifted. Your shoulders nice and relaxed. Think about your length as your dignity. So you have a dignity. It is there all the time. You're not in touch with it, but just be in touch with it. So that's your length. Now we'll talk about your width. So you can take a minute or a couple of seconds here, we'll think about your width. What does that mean? Well, actually think about the width of your body and actually move a little bit beyond that. Start by widening your chest, shoulders back. Take a deep breath again, be aware you're breathing. Try to actually, if your eyes are open, or open your eyes if they're not, be aware of your peripheral vision for a minute. The more focused we get, the more anxious we get, the more we are not aware of our peripheral vision. So soften your heart. Your width is really about the fact that you belong. It's about belonging. Now we're going to talk about depth. So for depth, I want you to think what's going on in front and behind you. Think about the space in front of you, the spaciousness in front of you, and take a second and breathe and think of that. What's behind you? Imagine there's a huge tail that you have, like a dinosaur tail that goes for a ways. And in that tail is all the knowledge, the experience you've gathered in your life, all that's helping support you. So you have that support, you have that warmth, and it brings you right here, right now, to be able to do what you're doing in your day. Take one more deep breath, and then have a seat. So that's just a little bit of mindfulness. And again, you can use a lot of it or a little of it. Very effective in a 2-minute go into the bathroom and close the door just when you're ready to lose it in any situation in your day. And you can pick one of these or all of these and go through them. So a couple other things about this way of looking at it. We will be more successful in our endeavors if we let go of the habit of running all the time and take little pauses to relax and center ourselves. And Thich Nhat Hanh. Richie Davidson, here at University of Wisconsin, talks about well-being being a skill. So what do we mean by that? Well, what it means is that it's not something that just automatically happens. You have to actually work at it a little bit. How do you get involved with mindfulness? Well, you can pick apps. There are great apps out there. Calm, Headspace, Breathe, I mentioned a few here. Fabulous classes offered around town here. MBSR, UW Health has multiple classes on their websites. Great books. So it depends on how you learn. How is it that you pick up new things? You can do it any of the ways that are shown here. Join a group, and there are great mindfulness groups in this town as well. We're lucky that we are in Madison. In Madison, we're actually one of the center of the mindfulness research universe here, believe it or not. This is a picture of Richie Davison and the website for the Center for Investigating Healthy Minds, which has now just changed its name to the Center for Healthy Minds. So they have studied mindfulness and have shown that it actually changes your brain. So it's not just a temporary thing that you get, but by regularly doing mindfulness, you actually reprogram your brain. This was, and if you want to read about this, I think this is a really nice summary. He wrote the lead article in Scientific American in November 2014. The adult brain can be deeply transformed through experience. And there's actual functional MRI showing areas shrinking and areas growing based on having a mindful approach. All right. So mindfulness does not mean you make your mind blank. You're aware of what's going on. You don't need to be free from thoughts. It doesn't make you blissed out and like, dude, just all calm all the time. That'd be great, but that's not what it's about at all. It's not about always feeling good, even while you're mindful. So sometimes it might bring some stuff up, but that's okay because you're aware of it. So that's kind of what that's about. All right. So here we are, right? Everybody feeling good. You can leave. Your life's going to be good now. So I have a little story to tell here. So I was giving a talk similar to this at the SGO meeting a few years back. And it was really focused on this last piece of mindfulness and resilience. And we spent an hour talking about it. And we did a whole bunch of mindfulness exercises. Everybody's feeling good, a bunch of smiles in the room. And we're like taking questions at the end. Everybody's happy. This guy stands up. And he's in the back of the room. A GYN oncologist stands up and he just lays into me. Right now, we've been doing this now for an hour, right? Like how he still had this energy, he was building the whole time. And this is not my fault. You're implying that you need to fix me, and therefore all the problems with wellness are my fault. And he was really offended by that. He didn't stop. He went on and on now we were done, we were over time. And he was talking about how like all you're trying to do is get us calm so people can dump on us even more. How's that going to fix all the problems above us? Everybody making us do all this stuff. I could go on and on all day, and you're just making me smile and take it. Well, we were over time, so as soon as he finished his rant, they made us get out of the room. I didn't even get a chance to answer, and that's how we ended the first ever mindfulness session at the SGO. It was horrifying, and I didn't quite know what to do. I basically just thought, I found it helpful. I know a lot of people that have found it helpful, but I couldn't quite wrap my head around what happened there. It actually took quite a while. I would say it was over a year later of really thinking and reading and learning about this, that I realized that he was right in a lot of ways. The piece that he wasn't right about is the fact that this is a piece that I think is critical. Some sort of resilience training is important because we need that. But what it allows us to do also is to advocate for ourselves and advocate for us as a profession in a much more productive way. So we have to take care of ourselves. We need to be able to be calm and mindful as best as we can in our lives, but that doesn't mean we just sit there and have people dump on us. So the better approach, instead of this, which is the way I was looking at it up to that point, was like, do a bunch of self-care and resilience, and then we'll all be happy. That was like the way I was looking at it. Since that time, I've changed my way of looking at it to more of what you see here. So if we advocate for ourselves, we need to get out there and do something about this. We need to work in multiple different realms to make wellness a priority and to get physician wellness sort of on the radar screen in all of these different manners, as well as taking care of ourselves. So how do we do that? Because doesn't it just sound self-serving, right? Like, we're doctors and we already are making good money and we have cars and houses and this all this stuff and we want to be well. Like it sounds sort of self-serving and I think getting over that hump was a major, major barrier. So I want to address that first. The way to do that is to really make the case, which is incredibly easy to make, it turns out, that this is a healthcare crisis. This is a public health crisis. Again, another topic that you can spend an hour on is just justifying this, but I'll spend just a little bit of time on it, which is that a couple things here. First of all, medical errors as we showed in our own UW Health data, but it's been shown in all the data, are directly tied to burnout. And there is, the medical errors lead to $1 trillion impact on the US economy. And there are good statistics that show that these might be able to be dropped by 20 to 30% just by dealing with burnout. There was a study that showed that career issues related to providers in Europe are costing the European economy 20 billion euros a year. Stanford recently, just this year, published data that showed that to replace a physician due to burnout costs $250,000 just in replacement costs, and it currently costs them up to $50 million every 2 years just to replace physicians. There's lots of data on patient compliance or patient doing what the doctor wants them to do, and patient satisfaction data are directly related to burnout. I will tell you that I saw this myself. Some people in the audience know this. I've shown them the data that when I was feeling the most burnt out, my patient satisfaction scores were the worst. And as I started to work on it, my personal patient satisfaction scores went back up. And so I know it is a real thing. 400 physicians every year commit suicide. That is an entire medical school class, and then some, every year. This is an impact, like when lawmakers, when people in power hear that, it's not just about 1 or 2 people wanting their lives to be better. This is a big deal for this country to have this happen. This is a rate, again, that's somewhere between 2 and 5 times the national average. So, as we think about this multifaceted approach, I want to start talking a little bit about, I'm going to go around this a little bit and kind of here and there and talk about different aspects. I'm going to start with professional societies because I think that that's where a lot of it has begun. And because I'm in the SGO and I'm working in the SGO, I thought I would talk a little bit about what we've done there. Because again, it's about what we can do. So all of you are part of a professional society. Could you get involved in your professional society? Can you then make a difference in that way? So after Jeff Fowler gave that grand round, or that talk, sorry, at the SGO meeting, he started this wellness work group. And I've been now leading that for the last couple of years. And we have 4 different work groups. One of them is the wellness curriculum. We've actually created a curriculum that we are working with our fellows on right now, and it's been beta tested at 15 sites around the country. That beta test finished in a month ago. We just finished that. And so we have all the data together. We're presenting it at this year's national meeting. We had 4 modules that are listed here. We had all of the either fellowship directors or the person who's going to be running that at the particular fellowship fly into Chicago, and we had a train the trainers session. This is them doing the centering practice that you guys did today, and you will notice over there in the corner is Laurel Rice doing centering. So she's done it at least twice. Yes. We also have work groups around communication, putting as much as we can into our annual meeting, and a new initiative related to mentoring. So I'm just going to go through these a little bit to talk about the level that these can be done at. So in terms of communication, one of the first things we need to do is really figure out the problem and get it out there. So a writing group of GYN oncologists from around the country got together, and we wrote a white paper on burnout and recommendations for burnout. And this has been well received and an important piece of this whole effort. Speaking of communication, the website. So we now have resources. We have a whole page on the website. You got a brand, so we have the logo and a brand. But we also have multiple ways that people can find wellness topics at the website itself. Recognize this guy? Yeah, he's right there. One of the things the communication group did with the SGO is start a blog. Once a month, we have something called SGO Issues, and in the SGO Issues, which has been going on for many years, all the top things that are coming out in GYN oncology. So anything related to a new treatment, anything that's been standardized. And so it's kind of a, our newsletter. And we threw into there, kind of in the bottom, let's throw in a wellness blog and see what happens. First month we put it in, it was the top clicked thing on the SGO issues. By the third month, it was by far 10 times higher than anything else that was clicked on when the email was sent out. The number one thing in G1 oncology that people clicked on last year was Steve Rose. Because Steve Rose wrote the number one blog last year. And so feel free to Google it and read it, not while we're speaking, not right now, but it's great. Easy to find, and he did a great job, so we're impressed. He's a great writer. At the annual meeting, these are all the things that happened last year at the annual meeting. We had guest speakers about the energy project. We brought in yoga. We had G1 oncologists doing yoga at 6 o'clock in the morning at the meeting. We had a wellness zone. We had a like a Fitbit kind of thing, and so all sorts of interesting stuff. We put up, so we had members submit thoughts, and we had those thoughts actually, with their permission, put on slides, and those slides were posted around the meeting. So I wanted to just show you a couple examples of those. So this one is from a military G1 oncologist. When SGO talks about wellness, it normalizes and brings a subject like this to the discussion. Building it into the curriculum at meetings or elsewhere makes it start to sink in. It takes a lot of amazing people to help make me a great mom, wife, and physician. I used to be embarrassed by this, but now I want to pass this secret along. So, some of what SGO is doing. Another major professional society, American Medical Association. They've been taking this on now for maybe 5 years or a little bit more. One of the things they did, they've got more money. They've decided to fund research in the area. This is an amazing study that they funded. Direct observation of 57 physicians for 430 hours. I'm going to summarize it for you. Physicians spent 33% of their working hours directly doing clinical work. Now these are only clinical hours here. It's not academic stuff. So of their time that they're supposed to be seeing patients, they're spending 33% of that with patients, 49% completing clerical tasks and interfacing with the EHR. So for every hour of clinical work that a physician does, they spend 2 hours on clerical and the medical record. So this was done in a scientific way and funded by the AMA. What else is the AMA doing? So I want to show you in this last 5-10 minutes of the talk, I want to show you some resources and things that societies and such are doing. So hopefully this will work. So this is the AMA Steps Forward program. And if you don't know about this, this is the active website we're looking at now. It's a collection of practice improvement strategies. There are 50 online modules that are put together. Okay, so as we go down to the categories, you'll see one of the categories is professional well-being. And you click on that, creating the organizational foundation for joy in medicine, preventing suicide, preventing resident and fellow burnout. These are all available. There's CME associated with them. So things are really starting to happen now. We're way past the acceptance phase. We're way past the, I got to figure this out myself phase. ACGME, let me get out of this. So the ACGME is similarly very much on top of this. We had, the SGO had members at this symposium, and they've had a couple symposiums. They're planning the third one on physician well-being, commitment to change. I just wanted to show this to you. This is what their topics, their goals were just to develop a concrete action plan for physician wellness, and ultimately, this is their timeline. And notice that the timeline, we're already through much of the timeline. So here's 2017, we're already into cycle 3. So we've already done fatigue management, mitigation, duty hours, and physician burnout. Now we're working on system-based approaches to physician well-being. System-based approaches. So there's so much going on right now. I can't describe it, and so the best way to describe it is to show it to you. So the National Academy of Medicine. This used to be called the Institute of Medicine. For those of us who've been around for a while, when we hear that, we shudder a little, because none of us quite understand how this group got so incredibly powerful. But if the Institute of Medicine puts out anything, it happens. If that group of people decide that it's important, it changes everything. That's how everything related to errors in medicine came through. That's how the electronic medical record got pushed through. That's how the cooperative groups in cancer got changed. They decide there's a problem, then everything will get focused to it in this country. So it has now changed its name recently to the National Academy of Medicine, and I want to walk you through their website for a second. So this is they have initiatives. So this is like of everything that the National Academy of Medicine could possibly work on in the United States for health. This is their initiatives. So global health risks, gene editing, but number one, Action Collaborative on Clinician Wellbeing and Resilience. So I'm going to click on that initiative. So there's good explanations here. It talks all about everything. Interesting thing here, call to express clinician well-being through resilience through art. So if you're an artist, that's a really interesting thing. Down here, if you just need a snapshot of what this problem is, 400 die by suicide each year, you want to put something up somewhere, it's right there for you. I'm actually going to come up here and click on this, which is organizational statements. These are individual organizations that have written statements about physician wellness and where they are right now and what they're going to do about it. And I just want to run you through here. You will see that there are a lot of organizations that are listed here. You'll see that University of Wisconsin is not yet one of them. The Society of GYN Oncologists is in the process of currently submitting, but let's just go to a couple quickly. So let's go to the American College of Ob-Gyn. We are represented. So here's our statement on commitment for well-being and resistance, and it talks about some history, and it goes through and tells you what they're doing. Some of them are much more impressive than others. Like, for example, the AMA one goes into everything that I mentioned to you in terms of the STEPS program and that kind of thing. But you can look through the American, there's another American Gynecologic and Obstetric Society has a really good statement as well. So this is now not a little deal. I just wanted to show you the level of a deal that this has become, and I think that's just fabulous. All right. What can we do related to government? Because it's another one of the pieces of that wheel I was showing. This is a really important part, is to advocate for ourselves in terms of government. We've not thought about this. Again, can we do this? Can we stand up for ourselves? We absolutely can. So the documentation burden is enormous and ridiculous, and we know that. And we need to do something about that. The amount of justification that's required from Medicaid for each test is one of the biggest dissatisfiers in all surveys. We need to facilitate appropriate non-physician delegation. APB and resume documentation is getting out of control. Scribes, the ability to allow physicians to take care of patients. We need health provider input into future laws and regulations. A lot of these laws, meaningful use laws, trainings, insurance regulations, stuff on narcotic laws, didn't even have physicians or providers involved on those committees. We need to be involved on these things. We have to make sure that state licensing boards eliminate questions regarding mental health conditions if they're not currently impairing that provider. That actually needs to be a national law. In most states, that is already the case. And in Wisconsin, they don't ask those questions, but they do in many states. Madison, again, is leading the way in much of this. The UW Health, like I've already shown you, really has a lot of mindfulness things going on and other physician wellness resources. I'm going to click on a couple here. So just the wellness option that works. Again, it's interesting, this cycle thing just keeps coming up. So it's based at UW Health around living well, health coaching, healthy environment, and resilience. And you can click on these, and there's plenty of information there. I want to spend a second on this. This is fascinating. Ellen showed me this, and it's the VA, so of course it doesn't look very pretty. But the amazing thing about it, like the VA, ultimately when you get right down to it, there's a ton there. It works really, really well. It just doesn't look very pretty. And you have, this was what's called the whole health modules. And these were developed actually by people here in UW, Adam Reinflesch and Dave Rakel, in Department of Family Medicine and Community Health. And they have these modules, and they could be used for patients, but they can also be used for providers. They're really, really detailed on all of these different topics: self-care, professional care. I'll just go to one really quick. Let's say you want self-care, and we're going to go to food and drink. This is a 31-page document on educating yourself on how you should eat and drink. All about nutrition and about how it can affect your life. It just goes on, and it's really, it's anything you need. It's all there and available to us at any time. So, in conclusion, our numbers are terrible. But we need to get our head out of the sand, and we need to do something about this. It's important for our institution, it's important for our patients, and it's important for us, and we shouldn't be embarrassed or ashamed about taking care of ourselves. I want to push this multifaceted approach to wellness and know that we need to do self-care, but that's just a piece of it. I'd recommend everybody think about ways they can not only take care of themselves, but pick one of these other areas and say, okay, I can't do all of this, but maybe I can do this. I can be on the hospital board, and the next time another ridiculous thing comes through that we need to do, we can say, hey, is there a real need for physicians to do that exact thing? So I think that's really an important sort of overall statement related to this. I like this. Not everybody can find their center, but hopefully you can. And so thanks for listening. We wanted to take a little time to talk about this, especially in the fact that we have this data that just came through that's so hot off the presses. So Laura wanted to start early and have some extra time for questions. So thank you. Thank you.
So a couple editorial comments before I open it up to the floor. First of all, the point that David made about 3 years ago, this wasn't even on anybody's radar screen, not just mine, but the rate at which this field of medicine is expanding is tremendous. And I really like that concept that wellness
Here, I'm
is...
giving you this.
Oh, thank you. Yep. That wellness
Is a skill. I started out by saying this is not Brownian motion. That took me a while to embrace that concept that actually I need to do something for myself. And that would translate into a bunch of different things, including more happiness at home, more happiness at work, more productivity at work. Meaning, like, I'm only speaking for myself here, it's always like, how much can I get done in the next 24 hours? And in the end, that becomes less productive. And I think that what David has laid out here is a platform for us to move forward. The importance of this is huge. And granted, obstetrics and gynecology departments in the United States are number 2, and we're number 3 at UW. Should we feel good about that? I don't think there's much happiness in that. I think that we as a department need to embrace this and decide, okay, how are we going to move together and support each other? Now, the first thing that I've kind of done myself is ask David we are moving around some of our conferences to have a 2-hour session together within a couple months about how we can approach this wellness thing. It's no longer like, does it exist? That's just not a question anymore. It's like, we're all can-do people. At M&M this morning, we had 2 perfect cases that show why our jobs, I would argue, are harder than anybody else's in the field of medicine. I've got no data, but I'm going there. And so I think we need to be strategic and organized about this. Not just like, well, let's talk about that and, whatever. No, there's a strategy here, and this is a very nimble can-do department. So that 2-hour session, you're going to hear more about that. We have an individual coming in from New York who facilitated that SGO session in September in Chicago, which I was at. She was great. So I think that everybody in this room is invited. I think we just need to move forward. And I want to turn it over to David. And first of all, say thank you, Dave. That was great. And then open it up for questions.
Yeah, I'll say that, actually I have this. Kristen Sharp is helping put this together. We're going to pull this, this is fresh, hot off the presses. I found out I was doing this, 2 days ago. But in those 2 days, we think we have the speaker coming from New York, and we'll try to find a good day to do this. And I think we're not going to fix this whole problem in a 2-hour session. The goal of there is going to be to strategize and figure out what we need to do as a department, start to figure out how we want to attack it, what things we want to take on, and how we can try to make it better and start to make a dent on this. So what questions do people have?
Mary?
Yes.
Let me get you the mic, Mary.
Oh,
I know, I'm so
oh
used
my
to it.
God.
I know.
So thank you very much. Taking this on, personalizing it, though your initial hesitancy to say it has anything to do with you, I think it is important that we all talk about it and how it does affect us. Because I'd be willing to bet that from time to time throughout a career, if we're able to stay engaged in a career as an OBGYN over that 30 plus years, that I'll say, as we select people to go to medical school, that is what we're hoping, is that they're not in it for 5 years, because we've burnt them out so fast that they really are going to be sustained. So thank you for talking about it. My question to you, because, and I won't say that I have a unique perspective, because I'm sitting next to Jen Karnowski, but my perspective is one of both working in private practice, OBGYN, as well as academic practice. And I'm curious, the Stanford information, and I know you only had days to look at it, but is that looking at academic specialties? Academic practices? Does it also include non-academic practices? Because I think when we talk about we need to very broadly talk about we as OBGYNs taking care of women in academic, as well as, again, the majority of us are working in a non-academic practice. And so embracing the non-academic providers, I think, is incredibly critical to a sustained workforce in OBGYN. So
Thank you.
Is there any non-academic?
I think that, first of all, in terms of that specific measure, it's been utilized across both academic and non-academic. I don't actually know. I saw the list briefly of the baseline places. I think it crosses both. I will tell you that the data on that issue shows that, for the most part, people in private practice have higher rates of burnout. That the more, it's actually one of our benefits that we can really potentially pull in here in an academic center, is that the more people have other things they can engage in their job, not outside their job, but in their job, that are not patient care related, that actually the lower the burnout rates get. So allowing people to have other interests and other things they work on actually is really important. And because the data in private practice is what most of the OBGYN data is that we're showing. Not in our data, but in general. And so that's a major issue. Yeah.
So thanks, Dave, and a big thanks to Laurel for bringing this forward and putting it in this kind of platform. Many of us have been aware of this for, I guess, several years. I've been on a UW GME task force on wellness. And I think we have an opportunity here to say and to look at the sobering numbers for our faculty, our residents, and our APPs. So I've been in the unique position of, hearing from the residents, hearing from the faculty, and we need to figure out a way for us to embrace this across all divisions, across every one of the people in our department. I would include administrative folks as well, and figure out how to improve our overall culture. And it's not by moving work from one group to another group. We have some issues with just the amount of work that's being done, and I really appreciate you highlighting that if people think of wellness initiatives as oh, I have to figure out how to work harder, smarter, faster, work compression, be more resilient. That's not sustainable. Many of us were Teflon in the early years, and you started the presentation with those kind of comedic, wow, what was it like way back when? And we do not want to be there at all. We want to be right here solidly in 2018. Our trainees have unique things that they're facing, and I know when I run the residency, I'm thinking, okay, I want to make this residency the best that it could possibly be, that I would want to be in. And so I think bringing this up at a department level is really important, because we've been trying to do this in the residency, and yet if the faculty don't embrace this, then there's just tension between faculty and resident about work assignments and issues. And so I think this is sobering data. I also am an eternal optimist. I love this department, and I really appreciate, both of you, senior people in departments saying this is important. This is important for all of us. This is important for all of the people in the department that we really care about, and for our patients. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Ellen. I mean, the trainee issue there is incredibly sobering. Just in our own fellowship, we sort of put in a wellness curriculum piece like about a year ago. Ryan is he still here? Hey there. And we put in a system where they can ask to go to doctor's appointments without being penalized. Never thought about, and it was like the first time it happened, I was just like, oh, wow, it's the middle of the day and they're going to a doctor's appointment. Well, of course, what are they going to go at, like 9 at night? The doctor's not open at 9 at night. But so we had to consciously do that. And so things like that, you have to think about. Behind you, Amanda. Probably have a chance, 2 more questions.
Thank you for doing this topic. It's really helpful and I think timely. I just wanted to let everyone know about a resource that I recently found. It's actually a podcast. So if you're the kind of person who's like, oh, that looks like great resources, but that's one more thing on my to-do list. It's kind of nice to have podcasts just kind of let everything kind of wash over you. It's called Weight Loss for the Busy Physician, and it's really not about weight loss. It's more about wellness and how to take care of yourself when you have so many competing priorities. And it's been really good. And it's like, I think the doctor's name is Katrina Ubel, and she's actually like a life coach who is a busy pediatrician in Milwaukee and does life coaching there too. But a really good resource.
Thank you. That's great.
Let's go with Jay, and then we'll have one more. Jay, screw it out.
Thanks so much, Dave. This was really wonderful. And as a non-physician, I just found it really incredibly sobering, just what you all are working with every day. I was really struck by the gender disparity. And although I think with the UW data, if I'm remembering right, it was the opposite potentially in OBGYN.
Just OBGYN, right? Mm-hmm.
Just OBGYN. So I was wondering, in the recommendations about how we systematically help with this, how does that gender disparity take shape? Is it things like reducing gender bias in medicine? Is it things like family policies? I was wondering, and I would imagine, you didn't share data, but I would imagine that white physicians potentially have less burnout than physicians of color. And so how are those sorts of things taken into account with some of the recommendations?
Fabulous question. I actually don't know the data on physicians of color. Every time I see data on this, it always surprises me in one way or another. That's the first time in any data, and I've been doing this for 3 or 4 years, so looking at different data, the first time I've ever seen in any population ever, men with a higher rate of burnout than women ever, is in the OBGYN data in this department. So I don't know how now that's something we have to now dive into. Is that OBGYN, because maybe I haven't just seen OBGYN data pulled out by itself, and maybe that's a problem across country, or is it this department, or is it a bias, or what is it? And we need to start figuring all of that out as we dive into it. I don't have any answers. Yeah.
Good question, I like it.
Yeah.
One more question over here, and then we have to go back to work.
Yeah.
I think as practicing physicians, we could probably go around the room. We could spend probably 3 days talking about these issues. Thank you very much for the talk. Talk was fantastic, and thank you for choosing it. 2 quick comments. One is that although tragic, it's a great metaphor, is the medical school class being lost every year. It echoes of the Institute of Medicine's metaphor of the jetliner going down every day with respect to errors. It's great to see the metrics coming through now. So obviously you can't measure it, you can't manage it, the burnout rates, et cetera. And I see us obviously just at the cusp of working an issue, and we've got much work to do, and hopefully things will improve. The last is, I want to mention, with respect to that suicide rate, I think we should all keep in mind that's 400 physicians that are committing suicide a year. These are people that are specifically trained to see depression and risk of suicide in patients. This is not just a base level of our population. The last thing is just kind of a mindfulness, just kind of a story, I guess. I see it. I had a chance to do a mindfulness course. Sadly, the first time I tried to do it, I couldn't even get it scheduled, and I got halfway through and canceled. Finally got into it. Just the irony of that. But it's a technique that I would consider more or less mandatory, at least for providers, which is the ability to get out of the river instead of swimming upstream and actually look at what's happening and pull yourself out. I think anybody who's gone through the course could probably go on and on about it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, David Kushner.
Thank you, Dave.